আমি দীপঙ্কর, আমি সিনিয়র কাজ করছি এবং IUCN এর পক্ষ থেকে এই NBSAB এর এই প্রজেক্টের যে পার্টটা সেটা আমি দেখছি। আপাতত তাই। আর ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড কোথায় বলা দরকার নেই।
I'm from East West Economics.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম, আমি সুলাইমান ফিদার। আমি দীপঙ্কর যেভাবে বললো আমি ডিপার্টমেন্টের মনোনীত কাজ করি মূলত বায়োডাইভার্সিটি নিয়ে। আমার ন্যাচারাল রিসোর্স ম্যানেজমেন্ট আমি দেখি পরিবেশ দপ্তরে। আর এই প্রজেক্ট যেটা আপডেটিং অ্যান্ড মেইন স্ট্রিমিং অফ ন্যাশনাল বায়োডাইভার্সিটি স্ট্র্যাটেজি ন্যাশনাল প্ল্যান, এটার প্রজেক্ট ডিরেক্টর। তো দীপঙ্কর যখন শেষ হবে ভূমিকা, তখন আমি একটু বলবো যে আমরা আসলে কেন আজকে এটা মানে এটার বিষয়ে একটু আমি ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড করবো। ঠিক আছে, থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ। আই উইল লাইক টু জানি।
আমি এনামুল হক, ইকোনমিক্সের শিক্ষক, ইস্ট ওয়েস্ট ইউনিভার্সিটি।
গুড মর্নিং, আমি শাজিয়া হোসেন খান। আমি 12 প্রকল্পে কাজ করছি, গভর্নেন্স ম্যানেজার, এবং আমাদের যে জন ডি রকফেলার রিসার্চ একটা প্রোগ্রাম আছে ওটার ফেলো হিসেবে।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম, আমি সাবিনা ফাহমি, আমি ইস্ট ওয়েস্ট ইউনিভার্সিটি ইকোনমিক্স ডিপার্টমেন্টে পড়ছি।
হ্যালো, আমি অন্তিক দে, আমি রিসার্চ অ্যাসোসিয়েট এশিয়ান সেন্টার ফর ডেভেলপমেন্ট। এটা এনএমসআই অর্গানাইজেশন।
আচ্ছা, এশিয়ান সেন্টার ফর ডেভেলপমেন্ট।
Good morning and my name is Muntasir Chaudhary. I am an assistant professor of the Department of Economics at East West University, and I am a proud student of Professor Ananova, as well as I'm working on this research project for the evaluation of ecosystem in Bangladesh.
Assalamualaikum, আমি ইয়াকুল নাসির, আমি ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটি জিওলজি ডিপার্টমেন্টের প্রফেসর।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম, আমি মোহাম্মদ সামিউর রহমান, থ্যাংক ইউ।
আপনি তো শুরু করে আমি বলবো মানে মানে ওয়েলকামে কিছু বলা দরকার আছে নাকি, মানে আমরা চলে যেতে পারি?
আমরা চলে যেতে।
আচ্ছা, মূলত হচ্ছে নট গোয়িং ইনটু মাচ ডিটেইল। আমি যেহেতু প্রজেক্টর ফর্মুলেশন থেকে শুরু করে প্রথম থেকে শুরু করে আমি আছি, তো আমি নিজেই কিন্তু এটার যে টার্মস অফ রেফারেন্স যে কাজগুলো আর কি, যেগুলো আমরা IUCN কে দিয়েছি, যেগুলো করার জন্য সেগুলো আমি ফর্মুলেশন করেছিলাম। তো প্রথমত হলো যে আমরা কেন করছি এবং আমরা কি চেয়েছিলাম আর কি, এটা বিষয়টা হলো যে we all are familiar with IT biodiversity targets, যেখানে টার্গেট নাম্বার 2 এ বলা আছে যে ভ্যালুয়েশন অফ বায়োডাইভার্সিটি, যেটা কিন্তু একটা নির্দিষ্ট সময়ের মধ্যে প্রত্যেকটা দেশকে অ্যাচিভ করার জন্য একটা টার্গেট দেওয়া হচ্ছে। বলা হচ্ছে 2020 সালের মধ্যে করে ফেলা হবে, ইন্টিগ্রেশন করা হবে ন্যাশনাল অ্যাকাউন্টিং প্রসেসে, সেটা গ্লোবাল টার্গেটে বলা হচ্ছে। এখন বাস্তবে কি অবস্থা? বাস্তবে হলো বাংলাদেশে যদি আমরা বলি প্ল্যানিং সিস্টেম যেটা এখন 7-5 প্ল্যান হচ্ছে বা প্রতি বছর আমরা ন্যাশনাল বাজেট হচ্ছে, সেখানে বায়োডাইভার্সিটি বলতে কোনো বা ইকোসিস্টেম সার্ভিসেস বলতে কোনো বিষয়ে এক্সক্লুসিভলি কোনো বাজেট বা কোনো অ্যাকাউন্টিং কোনো কিছু কি আছে? তো নাম্বার হিসেবে তারা এখানে ইকোনমিস্ট আছেন, তারা আছে ভালো একটা দিবেন। এটা আমার জানা মতে এখন পর্যন্ত এক্সক্লুসিভ কিছু নেই। এবং অলসো our policy level are not aware of values of biodiversity, values of ecosystem services, goods and services. So যেহেতু NBSAB আপডেট হচ্ছে in the line with IT biodiversity targets, যেগুলো বায়োডাইভার্সিটি স্ট্র্যাটেজিক প্ল্যানিং 2011 থেকে 2020, এবং আমি বলেছিলাম যে টার্গেট নাম্বার 2 যেটা বলা হচ্ছে যে ভ্যালুয়েশনটা কমপ্লিট করতে হবে, বায়োডাইভার্সিটি ভ্যালুয়েশন, ইকোসিস্টেম সার্ভিসেস ভ্যালুয়েশন, এবং সেটা করে ন্যাশনাল অ্যাকাউন্টিং প্রসেসে আনতে হবে। এখন we are working towards that direction, but we are not confirmed yet how long it will take in case of Bangladesh. Say maybe it is 2025 First of all, we need to make a thorough assessment of the ecosystems, their goods and services. Then we could, push the agenda to the policymaker. That you have to take into account the values of biodiversity, goods and services into accounting process, into budgeting process, and all other things, or planning process also. So, এখন সেটার জন্য আমরা যখন করলাম তখন আমরা চিন্তা করলাম যে আমরা অন্তত কিছু স্যাম্পল ইকোসিস্টেম কে নিয়ে ভ্যালুয়েশনের বিষয়টা করতে পারি কিনা। ইকোসিস্টেম বলতে ফুল আমরা ইকোসিস্টেমকে বোঝাতে চেষ্টা করি না, আমরা বলছিলাম তো সেটা কিছু স্যাম্পল নিয়ে আমরা পুরোটা আমরা বলি এক্সট্রাপোলেট করে হলেও বলতে পারি কিনা আমরা যে টোটাল সার্ভিসটা এই ধরনের হতে পারে, এস্টিমেটেড সার্ভিসেস মানে গুডস এন্ড সার্ভিসেস ভ্যালু সেটা এরকম হতে পারে। সো বিকজ NBSAB আপডেটিং এন্ড মেইন স্ট্রিমিং, তাহলে হলো কি একটা মেইন স্ট্রিমিং এর দিকে আমরা যাওয়া, যে ভ্যালুয়েশন কথাটাকে একটা ন্যাশনাল ডকুমেন্টে আনা হয়েছে এবং সেটার কারণে আমরা পরবর্তীতে উই আর গোয়িং টু আন্ডারটেক দি ভ্যালুয়েশন activities for all other ecosystems in a holistic manner. And by this time I came to learn also CREL project is working for the same objective with their project. Also CREL is our project. So I think we are, that is very good. That sounds very good that, say NBSAB project has taken only piecemeal activities. Now CREL maybe has taken some more broader activities, and some more activities will be required to complete the evaluation of all the ecosystems. Yeah. So আমরা আমাদের রিপোর্টটা যেটা এখন করছি সেটাতে আমরা যেন একটা ওই ধরনের কথাগুলো বলি, যতটা পারলাম সেটা আমাদেরকে বলতে হবে, এতটা পেরেছি, এতটা পারা গেল না, এতটা এই পদ্ধতি করেছি আমরা, মানে এইগুলোকে আবার এস্টাবলিশ করতে হচ্ছে আমাদের, যেন আমরা যেন খুব বেশি আমরা যেটা করলাম সেটা যেন ক্রেডিবল হয়, সেটা যেন আমরা সেল করতে পারি, সেটা উদ্দেশ্য। কারণ সেলিংটা হলো মেইন উদ্দেশ্য আমাদের পলিসি লেভেলে, কারণ এটা যাচ্ছে হলো উপরের লেভেল। NBSAB যে কাজটা হচ্ছে এটা উপরের লেভেলে চলে যাচ্ছে এবং এটা ন্যাশনাল লেভেলে যাচ্ছে, ইন্টারন্যাশনাল লেভেলে যাচ্ছে। সো এটার ডাইমেনশনটা একটু বেশি। মেবি ক্রেল প্রজেক্ট যত বড়ই কাজটা করছে সেটা কিন্তু ডিপার্টমেন্ট পর্যায়ে হয়তো গিয়ে এটাকে ইয়ে করবে, কিন্তু পরে আমরা চিন্তা করবো সেটাকে আমরা ন্যাশনালি কিভাবে ইন্টিগ্রেট করবো। কিন্তু NBSAB কাজটা ছোট হতে পারে in terms of say funding, in terms of time, resource, but it has got broader impact because it will be mainstreamed as a document. That's it. So it doesn't mean I am undermining CREL activity. No, I'm telling that your activity is complementary, as I understand so far. Then NBSAB is a national document. That is to be mainstream, that is the essence. So mainstreaming will produce so many things, maybe some more failed projects. Okay, so our objective is just to, you can say, pilot some area and then make a showcase, at least in some case boxes in our NBSAB report, updated NBSAB people, that this is the value for, say, you have gone for Lavasara, you have gone for Hilly Forest, you have gone for Sundarban, Sundarban or Tangor House, Sundarban. So Tangor House, Lavasara Forest, but I'm not sure whether Lavasara can be, say, defined as Hilly Forest. Anyway, but I think we can at least showcase these three types of ecosystems in our updated NBSAB. That is it. And also, we will be having, you can say, so many meetings, so workshops, consultations, where policy level people will be there. They will be convinced about these findings. The findings will be inbuilt with them. So our target is something different, that we are working towards making inbuilt these valuation things into policy level. So keeping those views in mind, I think we are working together, and we hope that we will make some very good result out of this very small piece of activity. That's the thing. Thank you very much. Sir, কিছু বলবেন?
Just thank you. Thank you. আমার মনে হয় better present ফোকাসটা পরিষ্কার হলো। This এই স্টাডিতে আমি যেটা পরিচয় করে দিই সেটা হচ্ছে মুতাসির তো আমার ছাত্র আগেই বলছে। তো তাকে ইন্ট্রোডিউস করার উদ্দেশ্য হচ্ছে কাজে আরো কিছু ঘটানো শেখানো। So that was one of the objective. So he is going to make the presentation, but কাজটা যেটা হচ্ছে খেটে কাজ করছে, but eventually I did work with him. But let's see the presentation and then we will discuss.
Sure.
Well, from my part, thank you once again, sir, for the introduction of the view and your objective that what you are working on it. And it's a very noble approach. I believe like the evaluation of the ecosystem, it's a very important context of today's world, and which IUCN and all the projects and the Bangladesh government is taking seriously, which is as an environmental economist, I believe that's a very positive sign. So our presentation is titled Estimation of Values of Services of Hilly Forest, Wetland and Mangrove Ecosystem in Bangladesh. And of course the research head is Professor Dr. Enamul Haq, and I am with him as a student, and as he has already said, and we also have Sabrina Yushar, who is a final year student. She's a final year student and worked as a research assistant for the project. So this is the context of the study, which is actually better described by you. You have just described it, that the Convention of Relevant Conference of Party has requested all parties to submit the 5th National Biodiversity Strategy Action Plan report.
Sorry, here is a mistake. This is not 5th NBSAB.
No, sir, I'm coming to that. The study.
No, just it is not 5th. We have to revise NBSAB. The evaluation thing should be inbuilt in the NBSAB. So 5th NBSAB is not correct. না, ফিফথ কথাটা হলো আমরা ফিফথ ন্যাশনাল রিপোর্ট করছি, সেটা আইউসিএন করছে, মানে আমাদের হয়ে ন্যাশনাল রিপোর্ট, ফিফথ ন্যাশনাল রিপোর্ট, কিন্তু এটা ফিফথ ন্যাশনাল রিপোর্টের ইস্যু না, এটা হলো ইস্যু হলো এনবিসিএল। So and revised NBSAB বলেন, if you write or parties to submit its revised NBSAB in line with IT biodiversity, that sounds good. That's that sounds correct.
So out of the 7 interlinked studies that the report is focusing on, one is the economic valuation of ecosystem in Bangladesh. That's a part. Now, the question of course comes that why economic valuation? Why we need it? And a very common argument could be that the ecosystem services are priceless and hence cannot be valued in monetary terms. That is a very traditional, conservative view that people have before. But things has changed. For last 50, 60 years, people are starting to realize that it is possible to monetize value of the services that we get. Like because the ecosystem that we have is directly related to our existence, because it's where we produce, where we consume, where we dispose our waste, and in many ways we are interlinked with the ecosystem, and we are a part of this ecosystem. And this number of population that is dependent on ecosystem was in the beginning of 1900th century was just 1 billion, and now in 2010 the population was estimated at 7 billion. So that is a very clear indication the pressure on this ecosystem for all the purposes that we have is increasingly in a very alarming rate. And that pressure, that is putting an immense pressure on the ecosystem. And that pressure on ecosystem is bringing forward debates that is basically between ecology and economic pursuit. Like how much ecology I'm going to sacrifice for how much economic benefit, or how much economic benefit requires how much ecosystem to exist. So all in this context, it becomes for us to understand how much is the economic value of things that we are basically depending on. Unfortunately, ecology does not have a price often loses to economy and its need. Economic system engulf ecological system. We overexploit our resources. We does not manage our resources efficiently, and we do not realize that this is immense important because the price not always is directly visible. One way to resolve this dilemma is to find value we lose while we encroach into the nature, or to understand the productive capacity of the nature to support human population at large. So how nature is supporting us and this large population from the beginning, and how it is going to support us in the future, all these things needs to be chalked out, needs to be valued, because so that we can solve, or we can at least pursue to solve this dilemma. Right? Now, therefore, what we want to do is that we want to monitorize so that the public and political decision makers are able to see and foreseeable loss due to conservation or deforestation of nature and its capacity. We must depend on nature. There is no way out. So the policymakers and the government and the policymakers, all that the people are concerned, people in the center of making decisions, they must understand this trade-off that exists, and they must understand the importance of the situation and the graveness of the scenario that is to come, so that how much we are going to lose if we do not conserve, or how much we are going to gain if we conserve. That is to be conserved. So basically, that is because the last statement that I made is because of this concept of value we have. Obviously, the concept is particularly derived from perspective of economics. And yes, there are many philosophical schools, and we are not undermining any one of them. But economics, particularly, is very much anthropocentric. It centers and it revolves around people. If it is about people, and it is about what people think is important. People enjoy benefit directly or indirectly from services provided by the ecosystem. As such, if the flow of services are reduced, there is a need for additional support to ensure the same productivity, and hence they have a willingness to pay to protect the ecosystem. Well, this is just an example, but we are willing to pay. We are willing to pay because we derive benefit. Since we derive benefit directly and indirectly, we want to conserve it for our future. We want to consume it for our present, and for all this, it is possible to find out how much, in monetary terms, people are willing to pay. And that amount of willingness to pay is an indication of the value people put onto the service. Again and again, I'm saying value people put because, as I say, study of economics is anthropocentric. Some of the services are directly linked to market system. Some are indirectly linked, and some may not have a market at all. Such as the fish from a river has a market. Yes, the fish from a river has a part to play in the cycle of ecology. It also has a part to play in our consumption purpose. So for the consumption purpose of the fish population has a marketplace. But fish is also important part in the ecosystem cycle, in the zoological botanic cycle that they have. That value is there because that value is related to the existence of the fish, and this is possible. Theoretically, it is possible to calculate all of this. Based on this, economists use, there are different ways of theories that base this idea. One is revealed preference, another is stated preference method to find willingness. Revealed preference is basically saying that through people's action, that is market, people reveal that they have a value. People do pay for fish. People do pay for goat. People do pay for value. People do pay for water. People do pay for natural beauty. They travel to Cox's Bazar. They travel to Sundarban. So people are paying. So when people are paying, they're revealing what they prefer. And this is what is in broad categories, theoretically called revealed preference method. sometimes when the market is not available, it could be a hypothetical good, it could be a policy that is yet to come, it could be a policy that will increase the fish population. In that case, when since it is not directly available in the market and no market that is available, it is possible we can ask people to state how much they get. Basically, CVM or contingent valuation method is a classic example of stated preference method, where we are asking for people to describe, people to tell us how much they value this system. This comes in handy when we are talking about different types of value. There are two major groups. One is use value, another one is non-use value. I'm coming to the use value next, but the non-use value is, in many parts, is very large. One is existence, bequest, values, all these values, as I have mentioned there, you can see these are values that does not have any market price. For example, Royal Bengal tigers in Sundarban is not only an important species, but it is also for us a cause of national pride. So there are some things that we just derive value from knowing that it exists, something that we want to leave for our future generation. It is something that we value. We are today, and we will not use it directly in future, but even then we have a value for it. That is exactly what is defined as non-use value. Now, non-use value does not have any market, and therefore the evaluation technique of the non-use value falls within that category as I have described in the previous slide, which is called the status preference method. Use value, on the other hand, can be once again divided into three parts: direct use value, indirect use value, and option value. Direct use value is something that we directly consume: crops, livestock, fisheries, food, fuel, recreation, religion, cultural, religious factors. All these things we are directly consuming. And we are directly consuming it, we are paying a price for it, and it is direct. Most of the time it is directly observable, such as like price for crops, but say for example, sometimes it is indirectly observable. Say for example, recreational value. Two things. It's a direct use value, but it may not be directly observable. It could be indirectly observable. I'm going to explain it in my next slide. The indirect use values are the existence of ecosystems providing us with services that are in no direct use, but that provides the basis or infrastructure that gives us the direct benefits, such as water regulation, habitat support, storm protection. These values are there because the ecosystem is there, and these services in turn produces or helps or creates the platform for other services or products that we directly consume. Option value is basically our future thinking, that we want to preserve a certain natural resource for our future use. The benefit is derived from a willingness to protect a resource so that we can use it at some future date. Now, this is taken from Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, where they have divided services into ecosystem services into 4 major parts, and they have interlinked it with the well-being of the people. This is something that probably very familiar with all of you. Like 4 services that ecosystem has is supporting, provisioning, regulating, and cultural. Supporting services is something that provides the basis or infrastructure for the other 3 services, like provisioning, regulation, and cultural. And this particular slide, which is taken from, as I say, Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, has interlinked how we depend on ecosystem, and for our security, for our basic material, for good life, for our health, for good social relation, and finally freedom of choice and action. And the provisioning services include food, fresh water, wood and fiber, fuel, few out of many listed. And regulating is climate regulation, flood regulation, water purification. Cultural is aesthetic, spiritual, educational, recreational, and supports the supporting service that supports all these three are basically nutrient recycling, soil formation, and primary production. Now, this is basically an interlink between the ecosystem and the economic well-being of people. Now let's come to the valuation method. As I have said, there are values, two things. One is we can use it directly or we can use it indirectly. Even if we use it directly or indirectly, the value sometimes is directly observable, sometimes is indirectly observable. Such as like if we talk about if we talk about ecosystem service, say for fish, from fish or animal grazing, or say for example rice production or irrigation or water, these things sometimes may have a direct market price. If direct market price is available, that gives us a very accurate results. But the problem with market price method is market is often not competitive, and market is often distorted, and in that case, price cannot be directly taken from the market. In that case, we need something called simulated market or market price. Another two methods that we use when values are directly observable is productivity approach or cost function approach. Productivity approach, such as is something like if I want to try to find out how much, for example, the wetland in Bangladesh has a contribution on agriculture, I estimate the production function of agriculture, and then in the production function I simulate for value that how the value will change, how the production will change if there is certain change in certain ecosystem services. Cost function is still the same thing, because as we know, cost is a mirror image of production. Sometimes the values are not directly observable, such as like the natural beauty of Cox's Bazar. The natural beauty of Cox's Bazar is there, and of course it does not have a price tag. But how do we evaluate? We evaluate by looking at how much people are traveling, how much people are paying to travel to Cox's Bazar. People are paying to travel to Cox's Bazar, but they are not paying to travel to, say, for example, any other random Upazila in Bangladesh. It is because of the natural beauty that gives the indication of the value. And this travel cost method is one of the most very popular methods in Bangladesh, popular methods in economics, followed by the hedonic pricing. The hedonic pricing method is basically saying, the word hedonic, it speaks for itself, it means utility. So basically, so a property that is adjacent to something that is naturally desirable, such as a lake or a river view apartment, has a higher price to a similar type of apartment away from it. So this additional value comes from the idea that the natural services. So this is a very good example, but this hedonic pricing method can be actually applicable for properties, as well as it can be applicable for land, irrigation land, arable land that has natural irrigation system. That has a higher price. Why? Because it's nearby the river, it can be naturally irrigated, it is naturally fertile, so that higher price compared to other land is basically because of the natural attributes. So if you can take the price differential between these two, that gives us a very good idea that how the value can be derived. Others are avoiding expenditure, like people mitigate. People mitigate to avoid certain damage, and this cost of mitigation is can be shown in the literature that the cost of mitigation is actually a good representation of the expected damage. Replacement cost method is not so frequently used, but it's another good one approach. Basically, sometimes we have to replace natural services with man-made services. Because of the loss in the ecosystem, loss in the services provided by the ecosystem. Theoretically speaking, the nutrient recycling and soil nutrient recycling that is there is something that naturally happens. If we could travel back in time for 200 years, hardly there are any fertilizers available. Now the use of fertilizer is increasing not only because we have to support a larger population, it's also because the land is losing its fertility. So how much extra amount of fertilizer we need to use in a piece of land compared to another control group can give us a very good indication that how much ecosystem service has been lost. as I say, value sometimes could be hypothetical. When no direct market exists, then we have an option that is direct hypothetical. We directly ask people how much you are willing to pay, which is known as, I believe, is a very popular method, contingent valuation method. However, it is not above debate. There is much debate and there is much controversy about contingent valuation method. But this remains sometimes one and only way out when the market is non-functional, and it becomes very difficult both in terms of time and in terms of money to go for a more in-depth studies. And indirect hypothetical method like contingent choice and choice experiment basically introduces people other than stating how much they're willing to pay. Those methods, they come up with a choice and they ask them to choose, and through choice they try to rank what people value more, what people value less. So in summary, these are the valuation methods that we have that is dependent on primary data. But primary data sometimes can be very expensive, both in terms of cost and both in terms of time and both in terms of purpose of the study. So there is another method which is widely being used all over the world, which is which is popularly called the benefit transfer method. The method estimates economic value of ecosystem services by transferring available information from studies already completed in another location and or the context. Like for example, we have a, we'll be giving a lot of examples on it. I don't have to share example here. The basic goal of benefit transfer is to estimate benefits from one context by adapting an estimate of benefits from some other context. Benefit transfer is often used when it is too expensive and or there are too little time available to conduct an original valuation study. Yet some measures of benefit is needed. It is important to note that benefit transfer method can only be as accurate as the initial study. Just to explain and back up my idea, as we were talking about the valuation of Sundarban just recently before I started my presentation, Sundarban itself is a large ecosystem. It has a very direct, indirect, option, and non-use values. To have a complete, theoretically exhaustive valuation of Sundarban, then I have to pick each and every service separately and try to find out separate methods to value each and service separately. And this requires astronomical time and effort and money. But that is possible, but that requires a purpose. And if the purpose and the time and the budget does not permit, then the most suitable way to do it is applying benefit transfer method. Now, if I want to apply benefit transfer method, the steps that we need to do, first of all, we have to identify existing studies or values that can be used for transfer. Like we take a particular case, ecosystem, we try to find out on that ecosystem what services were valued before, what types of literature are available, and what is the context of the literature. So then once we I'm sorry for the break. Once we have those studies in our hand, we have to check for the compatibility, whether the study is compatible, whether the study is transferable, and it depends on basically experience and also like understanding of the economics and ecological economics as a whole. The compatibility of relevant economy and population is a concern. It has to match. Transferability of value in terms of quality of this, transferability of the value in terms of quality of studies. And then step number 5 is adjust of values considering the period of study and currency used to value the services of the ecosystem. If some services was done in 2005 in a mangrove forest in Thailand, which is very much compatible with Bangladesh, so we can adapt it. But when we do if the study was, for example, if we adapted the study of Thailand and it was used Thai baht in terms of their measurement of land in terms of rai. So what we did, we converted to US dollar of 90 using the exchange rate of 1995. Then we converted rai to hectare. Then that value was adjusted for inflation to bring it to 2014. Because there is not one services where identifying many and was done in different contexts. So to bring them in a common ground, everything was converted to the $2004 value, and it was done by adjusting for inflation as far as for the exchange rate. So this is a very brief. Everybody here is actually very much acquainted with this information, but since the presentation requires, we're going to introduce hilly forests of ecosystem in Bangladesh. The total forest area of 2.52 million hectares, and forest comprises of total 0.67 hectare, which is roughly 4.54% of the total size of Bangladesh. And these hilly forests, hills of Sylhet, Moulobibazar, Hobigod, Chittagong, Rangamati, Khagrachari, and Bandarbhan district belongs to this particular ecosystem, where the trees, where the trees are basically is multi-story, and the forest is evergreen, mostly evergreen, and basically there is a certain rate of precipitation and other things that I have not included here, however. And the wetland ecosystem of Bangladesh basically are wetland typically refers to rivers, haors, bees, baur, and lakes in Bangladesh, and an interconnected river network with lakes, haors, bees, baurs also provide a rich habitat for a large variety of flora and fauna. It is in large in numbers as well as large in number of types of species, both for flora and fauna. It also provides grazing and food source for buffalo, ducks, many other wild animals and birds. Nearly 70% of Bangladesh goes underwater every year during the rainy season. And so one estimate would suggest that 70% of land in Bangladesh is wetland. However, for this estimation, we included beaches, haors, and river basins of Bangladesh, which is about only 8% of the total land of Bangladesh. Well, 8% is quite large. And then comes the coastal ecosystem of Bangladesh. The interface of transition area between land and sea, including large inland lakes, are known as the coastal areas. They have multiple functional forms, and unlike watersheds, no exact boundary can be demarcate coastal areas. Coastal ecosystems are areas of certainly unique biodiversity and productivity. Coastal system can be divided into two types. One is mangrove forest ecosystem and coastal wetlands. In our study, the mangrove forest ecosystem has been considered for understanding the values of ecosystem services. Nearly 0.9% of the land in Bangladesh falls under this mangrove ecosystem. And we did, and moving into the steps that we have taken in our research. The first step is to examine various types of ecosystem services that exist in this ecosystem. This has been done in two phases. In phase 1, an extensive literature survey was completed to list various services that exist on hilly forest and on wetland and on mangrove ecosystem. This is shown below in some other slide that is coming. It shows that a total of 50 different ecosystem services were recorded in our literature, so in literature search, of which 19 are provisioning services, 25 falls in the regulatory criteria, and 6 are cultural services. In phase 2, the long list of services was validated through literature relevant to Bangladesh and field verification using focus group discussion with communities. FGDs were completed in Lawachara Forest and Tangur Haor in order to verify some of these services. In case of mangrove, Similar verification was completed by IUCN earlier. FGTs were also used to find some of the market values for goods and services which are bought and sold in the market as a part of value validation exercise. This process resulted in reducing the list of services available in Bangladesh from this ecosystem to 49. 18 provisioning, 25 regulating, 6 cultural. And these are the list of provisioning services we have identified. H, the column H stands for hilly forest, column W stands for wetland, and M stands for mangrove. So agriculture was in there in hilly, and as an example I'm saying, agriculture was there in hilly and wetland, but not in mangrove. On the other hand, we have said that fish harvest was present in all these three ecosystems, and food harvest was also there, and medical resources was also there. Timber resources were only we have identified from the hill forest ecosystem. So if you have no objection, can I move to the next slide, or you want to spend some time on this one?
You finish it first, and then we come back.
These are the regulatory services that we have identified in these three types of ecosystem in Bangladesh. And you can see the serial number goes from 19 to 43. It is a follow-up from here, 1 to 18, then 19 to 43. And there are services that is we know there, but we haven't identified, such as like say waste assimilation, then we soil erosion, and then for example, fish habitat support in mangrove, etc. And these are the cultural services that is present in the ecosystems. And comes the issue of monetarized values of ecosystem services. The second step of this exercise is to conduct a literature research to identify relevant and reliable values for the identified services. We went through 54 different studies which were published in referred journals, books, and all other publications all over the world. The studies used, that's why they used are diverse both in terms of methodology of valuation and in terms of geographic coverage. The third step in the exercise was to identify a range of values that exist for similar services. Other than for a minimum exact average value, we wanted to look for a range, because it is not a study that was based on primary data. That's why a range is more applicable for policy concern, and it is also logically it's more logical to come up with a range. In this step, we use the maximum and minimum values as range of values for each service from the list of acceptable and relevant studies. In case where multiple studies were found for a specific service, we use the same value for the maximum and the not found. Yes, that should be not found. Same value maximum or value. And as we take the values from the relevant literature after the value was selected, the fourth step, and as I already have said that all of them were converted, all of them were done in different unit and different time, different currency, could be dollar, could be some other currency, could be Kenyan currency, could be Sri Lankan currency, but all were converted to US dollar, and then we had this, and that conversion is not enough, because if our study was done in 2005, in another one is done in 2000, if I convert both of them to USD, using the exchange rate of that year, even though they are not comparable because of the time. So we took the inflation rate to the yearly, say for example, if the study was done in 2005 and we want to bring it to 2014, then we have taken the average inflation of US rate from 2005 to 2014 to convert to value to bring it to 2014. So that we get a value of ecosystem services in 2014 US dollar, relevant exchange rate and US inflation rate were used to complete the exercise. Furthermore, we took care to normalize unit for analysis in hectare or in per capita units. I mean, different units were also converted. It's not only if it was acre per dollar and another was kilometer square per rupee, everything was converted hectare per USD of 2004.
Which inflation rate?
Use which inflation rate we use inflation. I mean, the source of the inflation rate.
No, which index? Yeah,
Which index?
We use it from
GDP different.
yes, GDP inflation rate, not the price index. Not CPI, GDP.
And all the systems you have used are explained in the
Right.
video.
Can we move on? Estimation of values of ecosystem services. Right, in this end of this part, we already have values in terms of per hectare USD. The fifth step was to use a secondary data to define the unit for estimating the values of three ecosystems of Bangladesh. And for that reason, we have to first find out how much of ecosystem we actually have in terms of land area in hectare. Because all the values are calculated per hectare, so we needed to have it, and this data is from the forest department. It says the hilly forest ecosystem in Bangladesh.
Yes.
In hectare, in million hectares. I forgot to mention the unit. It is like 675 million hectares, then it's 800 million hectares, and 134,000 hectares, not million, 1,000 hectares. Hectare, which is basically roughly the percentage of total land. And this is the final estimation. We multiplied the per hectare USD value with the amount of land, and we just divide one thing, that is provisional services without timber and provisional services with timber, and we found out that the hilly forest ecosystem, the values ranges from the total ecosystem value of the total ecosystem, hilly forest ecosystem value of Bangladesh ranges from around 11,000, ranges from 7,000 million USD, 7.5 thousand million USD to 14,300 million USD, roughly. That is the range. And the wet, which is roughly the percentage contribution to the GDP, is 4.3 to 8.2%. The wetland ecosystem we have in Bangladesh, which comprises 800,000 hectares, and that has a total economic value per year. It ranges from 1,525 million USD to 27,549 million USD. We expect the value of Bangladesh to be somewhere within this range, which is the percentage of the GDP accounts for from 1% to 16%. Mangrove ecosystem, the total economic value ranges from about 7,000 million USD to 16,000 million USD, which comprises almost 4% to 9% of the GDP. In total, from about 9% to 33.3% of the GDP of Bangladesh is a direct contribution of these three ecosystems. And that is the findings of our paper. I'm sure I'm going to come back to this table once again, but can I move on to the concluding slide and then come back?
I just want to ask you something. Are this estimate of outside estimate or estimate from Bangladesh?
Estimate from Bangladesh. I mean, benefits. I mean, we have taken the value from outside.
Outside, and then we have
adjusted it from Bangladesh.
So, which equations? I mean, if I were to take a look at the equation you have used to transfer the value for this, what is the expression of the formula?
Average values per hectare. That is coming from there. It's converted into Bangladesh dollars today into our hectare.
Okay. I see.
Multiplied by our. Simple math. It has been an initial exercise for understanding the contribution of different ecosystem services to the economy of Bangladesh. Overall, the study shows that nearly 9.2 to 3.3, 33.3% of GDP of Bangladesh are contributed by these ecosystems. The wide degree of variation exists because the data sources are from studies from different parts of the world, and hence it would remain a weakness in the study, of course. In terms of future decisions, as a follow-up of this study, we suggest conducting a series of economic evaluation for major ecosystem services in Bangladesh using primary methods, the methods that we discussed today. And thank you for that.
I would ask one question.
Sure.
So we can actually apply this method, let's say, in macro. So let's say I want to study the impact of unemployment, okay, and we don't have those statistics, so I can study abroad the how do they study the impact of unemployment, okay, and I can use those statistics, okay, so let's see impact of unemployment and inflation and GDP, and then I have the minimum and the maximum. And then change this to big changes and say that okay, in our country the impact on unemployment would be like that.
Yeah, I mean, under that, yes, I mean, of course, you can do it under the assumption that the compatibility of the population is there. Since you're talking about
the same structure.
yes, like culture, religion, societal structure, there has to be the compatibility because you're talking about human behavior. So human behavior comes from cultural, social, religious, all compatibilities. Compatibility is there, yes. I mean, if I bring it to a macro concept, but in a smaller size, that if there is unemployment in Noakhali district, what people will do will be similar to if there is unemployment in Borishal district. But if you're talking about unemployment in Bangladesh district with unemployment in USA, may not be the same because the cultural compatibility has to be there.
So the big assumption is that it has to match the underlying.
The assumption becomes very big. The assumption becomes very big when you're talking about compatibility of population and their attitude. But the compatibility is a very serious issue. But since mangrove forest in Thailand as well as Bangladesh, the compatibility is there is much more compatibility there. That's it.
I have a bit of few comments.
Sure.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. And there is a bit of information that I would like to share here.
Please.
Because as Sulaiman has mentioned that we have initiated certain evaluation exercise actually for over 1 year period. So it's something that when we look at coastal ecosystems, you considered only mangroves.
Yeah,
So yeah, the rest of the ones that is important for ECAs, for DOE specifically, like St. Martin's, Shonadia, Nichundi, all those areas, even like those coastal area, if I think it would reflect also some other values that might could have been used. That's there. Although in Shonadia there is significant patch of mangrove forest. Maybe you can say that okay, one is good to show, but it's worth mentioning that coastal areas in ECAs also covers Shonadia, St. Martin's, Shonadia particularly. And second issue is that second thing actually is if you go back to the regulatory, this one. For hill forest, you considered Lawachara, is it?
That's where we did our FGD, but considered also literature. That also covers forest in
that is, since that's a protected area and timber is not really allowed and collection of although trade. So it might be useful to also mention, although in academic exercise it doesn't matter if we are actually including the do's and don'ts or not, but since it's going to go in that NBSAB, it's also important to mention the prohibitions. But at the same time, right now what we see lessons from Lawachora is that there is a significant increase in tourists in Lawachora, and because of the facilities that's being developed, and also the local communities are being benefited. The highest amount of tourist service that is given and revenue received, and also profit for GOP is coming from Lawachora, much more than any of the protected areas, in particular in the forest. So that might be something if you have time to consider, since that's one thing. And our hunch is that in terms of, if we look at the provisional services with timber, if we compare the cultural services, that might come higher, the last one. For Sundarban, I would just like to mention people in this table, everyone, because since all of you would be interested to know that in CREL is in partnership with John D. Rockefeller Grant, and that's policy research. It's a policy research, so the idea, Solomon Bhai, is actually to include the findings of ecosystem valuation into policy documents. So that's the goal of the research. So what we have, INAMSAR also guided our team in valuing. So what we are doing is we are collecting primary data. We are done with collection. We have so far approximately 2,000 surveys done, samples. We are actually finding, calculating at the moment. First is the cultural service, and under cultural services, we will be able to give actual value of tourism services, stated preference, and also spiritual value, because Sundarban has a specific spiritual value. We consider Dubla, Gunbibi, all those kind of festivities. And also we will be able to give data on the stated preference after an oil spill that happened by the tourists, particularly the foreign tourists. Then we are also calculating the provisional services, although it's already been done by another colleague of ours, but it was only based on some revenue data, the provisional services of Sundarban by Mohammad Shamsuddin. That's been published also in journal. But we are recalculating it because we are looking at the forest dependency of the people in different areas of Sundarban. And for protection or regulatory service, that's the most interesting part that we are actually seeing when we are looking at the result. That is, of course, Inamu Sir guided us to see a comparison. What happens if there is an artificial water infrastructure, and if we compare that with the natural mangrove forest wall?
Replacement methods.
Yeah. So what we are doing is we are looking at the impact of like how much damage was incurred, how much damage could be avoided, and at the same time we are looking at the comparison between Sundarban and Borguna, where there is embankment, and what was the impact. In addition, as an offshoot of the study, because we generated a lot of data, so that's why we found that actually the length and breadth of the mangrove forest will impacts the nature of the storm. To the extent, Sparso is claiming that they will be able to show us that it will change when it comes towards the coastal area. It actually can impact on the eye of the storm. So if the eye of the cyclone can be impacted near the coastal area, so you can imagine how much contribution of mangrove national forest will be in terms of regulatory or protection service. So this is, we are still actually talking to the meteorological department on that. Then Sundarban, another thing, what we are looking at is the impact of climate change. We are actually projecting the climate change IPCC scenarios on the results of these values, and see if we are actually putting the results, how simulation, what will be the result of climate change impacts in different years, in different meter of sea level rise goes on that. Particularly, so we are also be able to show some climate benefit, and because of the and lastly, we were requested by the Forest Department to actually use the carbon value of Sundarban. So because the carbon inventory has been completed, so now it's a more of an easy calculation because we can actually do that right away once it's done. So this is what we will be able to actually give at the end of September, because we started last year and it's extensive primary data intensive survey, and we just started analyzing the data. It's a huge amount of data, so hopefully we can actually also supplement the findings of this study, since we also have time. That's all.
Thank you, Shazia, for the comment.
Just one comment on that. Technically speaking, I'm very interested into what is being conceptualized as the stated preference after oil spill, taking data from the foreigners. That's a very interesting statement. I would like to know what it is, because maybe it's very how to put it. It may be a very counterintuitive thing of what they think and what has been done. But I don't know. It can come up, bring about some more debates and everything. But it's very interesting, even from the technical point of view, all certain valuations and the key important valuations.
So you're referring to that report made by UNGO mission?
No, I was just saying that it is in your study, in the health study.
We had to do it because there were some issue with biasness, and when we did, that was also the peak season of tourists. So we were doing our ongoing survey, and the spill happened. That impacted the tourism and in December and January. So we also had to include the skill data and also try to see a comparison, what happens before or after, if that changes, what kind of facilities or preference of tourists, whether it changes or not, whether they see things or not in those areas, those kind of.
I mean, after Shellak's incident?
Yeah.
Thank you, Shazia, for your comments. One thing that
another thing would be up in September, if your findings come up, end of September.
Yeah.
If it comes up, then it will be very, it's not possible practically.
But for Sulaiman Bhai, it's possible.
What? Two?
I haven't followed. Repeat it again.
He's saying that when we were talking about including our data manual evaluation results into this study.
Into
But-
NBSAB? Yeah, it is possible because NBSAB is going to be finalized by say next December, January. So you still have time to put something as cases study,
So I think it's
as,
possible to follow.
say something very good thing can always be entertained or welcome. That is possible. And I have mentioned that this is not first and last, and the study is just only beginning.
At the preface.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So it will be extremely interesting to see with benefit transfer. We always see that huge range. It is not only because of the method, but it's also because of the very way that we are conceptualizing the services themselves as of now. It's just what 10-15 years, sir, that the evolution of conceptualizing ecosystem services valuation.
Services valuation, but environmental valuation.
That's of course. But specifically,
This is valuation 2005 for the millennium
Ecosystem assessments.
millennium ecosystem 2005.
তারপরে তো ডিপ রুটস তারা অনেক ক্রিটিসাইজ করলেন জিনিসটাকে অনেক ভালো আরো 80 দশকের আগে
মানে এগুলো খুব একটা কোনো লিটারেচার
স্পেসিফিক এই টপিকে তো এই রেঞ্জের সাথে যেহেতু দুইটা পিলার অফ সার্ভিস নিয়ে ক্রেডিট কাজটা হচ্ছে সেই জায়গায় কিভাবে কম্পারিজনটা কি হয় সেটা খুব ইম্পর্টেন্ট একটা বোধহয়
আমি একটু ইন্টারপ্রেট করি if you look at these numbers, remember what these numbers are doing. We have used 3 cases to understand the existence, what are the services you can see. Remember, the literature gives you service and we wanted to verify whether these services exist in this ecosystem. which is mostly from two sources. One is within the country literature, and second is from the field observation. So that is only not for the valuation, that is only for the identification of the services. Since this data does not go into primary research, so none of the values are actually coming from field. So remember that. Okay. So values are not from the field. Identification of services, we use FGDs to identify them so that when we look into the literature, we look at the services that have been identified and then look which literature, which study supported what kind of values. So we have to do this cross-checking of services versus values. Some of the literature, there is another table which is not there, but we have the summary of tables where we have looked into this, for example, which study, which country, which year, which method they have used. So we have a list of 54 studies of by country, these are all published. That's another source we could not, or we should not take normally the methodology. It has to be published sources. That means it's what you call peer reviewed first. Otherwise, you cannot take the values. So we look into this, and then our next job was, and this was a difficult one, some of the services, the reason the ranges are so big, because some services did not include some of the services that we have listed, some very few. Some included only few of them, some included more of a holistic value. So some values are too high, some values are too low, because depends on what are the countries services are coming from and what study they have used, what method they have used, they have a significant ranges of values. So for example, Sharia studies will only give certain values, some produce services. And we have looked into our list of services, lot of values. So that is where the benefit transfer gives you a holistic picture. But if you really want each service, then you need to go through similar studies that Trey is doing in order to understand values for each one. So it's a more of a holistic idea, and that's why it gives always a wide range of values. It does not give one value. Yes, Hasib.
Thank you very much. Second, again, so I'm not sure whether it has already been talked about. Can we really say contribution to the GDP?
Yeah. This is the flow parley.
Because when you say contribution, so it is already included in the GDP.
No, you cannot say that. You cannot say that. Some of them are not included. Some of them are not included. Some of them are included. So not all of them are included.
Because I'm saying that since we have taken only the 3 ecosystems, if we consider all the different ecosystems and avoid the overlap, maybe it will exceed the current GDP rate.
Since remember this was first study by Costantes. Costantes studies gave 3 times of global GDP. So his study, but said the total value of services from the whole world. Again, similar studies gave you 3 times the value of the output.
But he didn't say that it is contributing.
No,
so we can say that these 3 so the layman, I would say that 1/3 of the GDP
is
they are contributing. They are not contributing.
What is the
contributing? I don't have the word for it.
The value could be equivalent to
1/3 of the GDP, something like that.
Equivalent to 1/3 of GDP. If all the contribution are calculated, estimated, then it could exist.
Yeah. Now this is only for 3 ecosystems. Remember, there are many other ecosystems. Like whole coast is the whole coastal wetland is not included. We have mentioned it already. So remember the marine ecosystem is not included. So this is only from the 3 you are getting height one, and this is from a literature which is quite diverse. So it just gives you an idea that where do you need to put some more effort. But if you go back to the table, it will be also this table also gives you something that for me to look into it. If you look between the services, provisional versus regulatory versus culture, then you can see a larger number of values depending on which literature you are following, coming from where? Sometimes provisional, sometimes regulatory. And regulatory is a very unknown. This is where the literature is very weak. So this is where you might think, okay, we Provisional services they are more understood, but regulatory services valuations are very difficult and nothing is done. So I can give you the, if somebody is questioning and try to pursue more, the two services they should pursue is provisional and regulatory services. These are the two major services contributed by these ecosystems. So I'm just looking at the relative importance of the services in between the total values. Okay, but yes, you are correct. I'm not sure. Contribution I mentioned, but I didn't want, I was looking for a word. What is the best way to do it? So this could be equivalent of 33% of GDP, rather than saying contribution of.
Yeah. Then you can also add that the total calculation of the ecosystem may exceed.
Oh yeah, that should exceed. That I agree with Mark. So that's it.
Practically speaking, since our all consumption and all activities depends on ecology and environment for everything. So everything we have in GDP and outside GDP that is not calculated in GDP is basically comes from environment.
No, but that is but what is more important is to understand, because if you look at the provisional part of GDP, but regulatories are really not part of GDPs.
One of the things is that in terms of coastal, I'm not only coastal, mangrove is part of coastal, but the idea of having NBSAB is to conserve those areas, right? So in terms of that, if we are seeing a lot of threats coming in our coastal ecosystems because of a lot of other tribes. So now, I mean, the point is we shouldn't end up undervaluing the coastal ecosystem. That will be one concern. Since we don't have the regulatory service values significant for that.
We don't have a coastal here.
Coastal, you're considering coastal or mangrove?
Only mangrove.
Only mangrove.
Not for the coast.
Even if it's that, it's 1.2% to 0.1%. I would still actually request to actually review that, because we don't want to end up undervaluing this.
Well,
because if you look at the comparison, because this is one of the things that we will compare. At the policy level, this will be compared. And if this is being compared, that okay, the contribution of mangrove in terms of flood, cyclone, storm, whatever protection is this amount, much less than the other. Or if it's compared like that, if you look at the wetland ecosystem, for example, it's 9.4%.
I think this requires some proving. Basically, I think my own feeling is that these were studies taken from other mangroves where it does not have the similar protection like Bangladesh has, bigger mangrove. Because normally most of the mangrove are 20 to 100, within 100.
Smaller patches.
Smaller patches.
Yeah.
So this must be excluded. So we should look into this. That's why I mentioned that I wanted the data of which value were included from which country. So it will be a rider to explain that. I think it's a very good point.
Is there a report done from India? Mangrove one done from India, the valuation.
There is Shodamini has done. Shodamini, but the problem is it's not regulatory. It's provision. Yeah. So there are works done. The only bigger mangrove is I get either in here or maybe on the other side is So this is where, but I think may not be cyclone is there. So you should mention it somewhere that water. That's what I wanted the other summary. Which value taken from which country, so that we can say this method we have done after we have submitted. We have done one work and now we have to work on it. Which values and what is not included. Because I think mangrove Sundarban looks very low.
And it's at something. Actually, the translation I like to give thanks to Namanal Sakti to at this Muntasi, minor son, Muntasi, as well as Sabrina, to work in this project. This is a good, I'm very much impressed. That's what is done because we discussed a lot for a very long time that how we
young generation.
Come up. This is very good. Very impressive.
For economic valuation,
Yes. I had some little suggestion or comment or on this thing that whether you have considered this aesthetic value. We have considered aesthetic value for one, because I worked with Oxford University, the coastal area once in 2012, where we actually considered this aesthetic values to evaluation the thing, and then the social values that they are talking about, the social, that is the religious and religious harmonies, those kind of things are very important. Recently, I'm working on the governance of fisheries. So that is another. Governance is as a regulatory part is very important in the coastal area. Because what we see that although we are trying to conserve fish, but we cannot conserve nature from the coastal area, something is happening there. So we're trying to find out the loopholes, and that also has, I think, that there should be a value for the governance as a whole. So that can be included to suggest point to improve the coastal value. Besides, the value of dry fish from the coastal area, there's a lot of dry fish business from the coastal area. Shark fishery is another one, because that has a CITES value as well as, there's two kinds of value. There's fin fish and things that could improve the value, as well as normal fishery. The data is available from the fisheries department. So if you just go for the particular area, or I can also help you if you need to get those kind of. I can give you the number. I can give you the number of things, the amount of fish or things that is coming out from this place. But you can have the value, and then you can convert it into for the coastal area. Right? It's given inside the mangrove, especially from the Sundarban. I think that you also consider the fisheries. Both that is very important. Yeah. So that's another one that I like to make here. So this is the basic observation I have. So if we value this non-timber items like fish and fishery products, even they have those marsh crab is another one from the Sundarban. So that is, you don't see the value. Marsh crab, Tangra, the business is a big business. Marsh eel. So it's not the normal fish item even, but it's a big export value from the coastal area. So that could be included into that value for the coastal area. So, and I think that will improve. And I feel sad that Simon is not here. Simon should be here, because I always like, they should see this nice presentation. You cannot do it every time. From the fisheries department, the policymaker should be here. Simon is the policymaker. He always escape like this. I feel bad. I'll go back.
Will be coming in
You will see this nice presentation, because it's so simple. He simply explained everything. Because we need to poke this kind of very simple concept to the policymaker. They are making those projects, Because I'm working with him for another project formulation, he don't agree, because he don't understand.
Similar ask for mapping and GIS.
Yeah, if they don't understand, so they don't say, no, we don't want to do that. It's something like this. So, but if they present here like this kind of very simple and nicely presented documentation, they could inspire and they could do it in the policy thing, because they are doing this kind of thing in the.
And it seems benefit transfer, for benefit transfer, we have to consider socio-demography, a lot of other considerations. And governance.
Yes.
So here in this table, I think in general, we should also keep that in mind, the implications of this.
Also the limitation
in the
benefit transfer.
implications for the policymaker.
Policymaker.
What is the drive that we are seeing? What are the places that's being threatened? What is the future of governance?
What are the drivers?
Drivers
is very important. So the policymaker is now looking for those kind of things. Because
they will use this, they will just look at this, they will not look at the actual value, they will look at the thing and consider. So it's very important.
Two statements that two things that I would like to mention. Thank you, sir, for your.
No, it's okay. It's there. It's there. Just to make a little bit of.
The coastal ecosystem was not within our scope of study. And the dry fish, obviously, that's a large part of the economy, both in terms of regulation, protection, and everything. But that is not there.
But under mangrove, we can put it.
But mangrove fisheries is already been included. And there are some unique services that may be present in Sundarban that is not here because it's a benefit transfer. Like obviously we say that Vinod's presentation that benefit transfer can only be as accurate as the initial status, which basically implies that it is based on, it is obviously it's approximation, yes, but it's a good approximation.
At least we can get a value.
Exactly. But if I want to particularly say I want to find out the value of Sundarban, then it has to be the primary side. And that's also our recommendation. If you see that in the last recommendation we had in our conclusion that we suggest conduct a series of economic valuation for major ecosystem services in Bangladesh using primary.
I agree with that, but I really appreciate that at least we have some number to understand the ecosystem's value, you know. And then somebody will come up and do this thing. But what me and I think that Sajay is trying to get to just to adjust those things, because the difference between a maximum and minimum is very high. So it is for policymakers, they will say why it is so different. Why it is 20 times more? Minimum they think about the deviation value. Yeah, deviation is very high.
I have a very this.
Now look at Rasta coming.
There are limitations, but what I am trying to say, is it possible to say that in this report there is a future that we could incorporate the cyclone combating values of mangrove, because these are not available.
No, this is why I told you that after I finished this, we did two works, which is one is we have now looked into the summary of the studies, try to find out which studies we have considered, which country is coming from, what valuation method. The next summary that I have asked is not done yet. It's on its way. Yeah, on its way, which is that the values that I have used and the tables that is shown, remember the cross tables, which values are included in those, and then there will be missing. That these are the values like cyclone are not in any of them. So that will give you the gap, that these are the values not.
No, I don't say that you do it, but what I want to say that it is possible to just mention.
Yeah, you can.
Since there are long data available, could not incorporate some full combating values.
It's possible. That I'm actually the last customer, yes.
অন্যান্য ইকোসিস্টেমের সাথে কম্পেয়ার করে কম্পেটিবিলিটি দেখে এই ভ্যালুগুলো নেওয়া হয়েছে প্রাইমারি স্টাডি তো এটা খুলে দিবেন আমি খুলে দিই অন্যান্য দেশে এরকম সাধারণ কম্পেটিভ ভ্যালু নাই আমাদের দেশে সিট ওটা আমরা নাম কিছু কাভার করি ও না এই আমারটা আপনারা আছে
regulatory problem.
Regulatory and also cultural, sir. Because culturally, as a karon amader to revenue sharing the system gula ashte ota to kind of a PES. So that will actually dictate. When hilly forest যেগুলো আমরা লাও ছড়া, if it's representative of other evergreen forest, and we have a kind of revenue sharing system through which we are trying to conserve the ecosystem services in those places, তখন কিন্তু মানে ওই ভ্যালুটাও দরকার উচিত at least যদি প্রভিশনালে না হোক, যদি ট্যুরিজমের রেভিনিউটা ফরেস্ট ডিপার্টমেন্ট থেকে পাওয়া যায়, see if you can just plug in that, even if it's low. But আমরাও দিতে পারবো, আমাদের কাছে আছে, we have 10 years revenue data. এটা তো just inserting in your calculation, nothing else. Just see if it makes significant
logical এটা দিতে মানে আমরা কালচারাল ভ্যালু
you are missing right now
সিদ্ধান্ত হবে যে আপনি সব কিছু করতে পারবেন
কালচারটা বেনিফিট ট্রান্সফার করা যায় না, কারণ কালচারের কোনো কম্প্যাটিবিলিটি নেই।
No, you're I see. Nah.
না,
মানে